Hello everyone and welcome to GamePad Online and our very first interview of the event. My name is Nigel, I'm the mayamada co-founder and organizer of GamePad, and as usual we are here speaking with different creative professionals in the video game industry. So as you know, we like to speak to people, find out a bit more about their journey, how they got to where they are, some of the work they do today, and any bits of advice, things for people who might aspire to do similar things. So we're going to get started. I'm here speaking with Maria Yue, who is the principal lighting artist at Splash Damage. Maria, thank you for joining me. Welcome.
Thanks for having me.
No worries. No worries. We're just saying, so we speak to different people in these interviews, and it's always interesting to find people who have roles that you might not always think about when you're playing games. And lighting, it sounds like such an obvious thing, but you don't always necessarily think that there's a single person or at least a few people who are working solely on lighting. So I'm personally interested to find out like how this all works. So we're gonna get into that. So for people watching, you can let us know your thoughts in the live chat. If you have questions, you can also jump in our Discord, continue the conversation there, especially if you are someone who is interested in lighting or just generally in the video games industry and getting started in it. So hopefully we can help point you in the right direction. So it's all about making the industry more inclusive and making more people aware of career paths in video games. So, like I said, Maria is a lighting artist, trained in stage and photography, and has worked on AAA titles with game engines like Unreal, CryEngine, and we're going to find out a bit more. So, actually, before we even sort of get into you, can you tell us some of the games that you've worked on that people might have heard of, or that the games that you can say at least?
Yeah, I'd love to. So, and hello again, guys, and thanks, Nigel, for having me. I'm Maria. So far, I've been working as a video game lighting artist in the past 9 years. The studio I've been at, including Ubisoft Shanghai, Crytek Frankfurt, and Cloud Imperium Games in Manchester, UK. And I am currently with Splash Damage, which is a very happy studio. I would definitely recommend people to work with. So far, my shipping title including 3 Far Cry franchise, starts from Far Cry 4, and a DLC we purely made in Shanghai studio is called A Valley of the Yeti, and I also involved to the development of Far Cry Primal and also some early development for the Far Cry Primal project. So after Far Cry's, I met an opportunity to move to Crytek. So it's kind of interesting coincidence because they're actually where the CryEngine come from. So I've been worked at 2 VR project. One is named Robinson the Journey on the very first version of PlayStation VR, and then the other one it was Clamp. They are cross-platform, including both Oculus and PlayStation. And after that, I got the opportunity to move back to UK because I actually came to UK about 10 years ago as an international student to study theater and stage design. So I did my master degree in Kingston University in London. So it's kind of feel like back to a place I'm familiar with. I do have local friends here. So that was quite exciting. So when I worked at Cloud Imperium Games, which is a studio famous about crowdfunding for the online MMORPG, and it's an MMO space game, technically speaking. So it's for Star Citizen. And after that, I joined Splash Damage. It's one of our most exciting team to work on the latest Gears. And after the Gears, I am under unannounced new project, which is fully developed inside our Splash Damage. So far with my journey, I've been across the 3 countries. I'm born in China and also raised there. So I studied in UK for about 5 years and then come back to China. So then I moved to Germany and come back to UK again. So yeah, it's good to see you all here.
Wow. So you've been to a few places. So you said you're born in China. So interested to know what was your relationship with video games when you were growing up? Is it something were you into video games at an early age, or is it something that came later?
Well, in general, I'm a big fan about because the earliest video game I've saw just because I'm in China, they are not like those AAA titles in the Western publishers. I actually started the first video game I know. I'm probably sure is Final Fantasy because like we've been heavily influenced by Japanese culture as well as manga. So I'm a big fan of manga, animation, and later with games. But because in China back then, that's like it was early 80s and we have very limited access about all of the title. I remember like the first one I played is probably either the earliest Tenju Shenmue, so they are like a really early version. It was on Dreamcast, if you by any chance you know the console. And then it's PlayStation 2. And after that, it's like, well, like Final Fantasy, because I never have any computer science background. So when I was like find my early interest is actually about the character, like all of the fantasy art, because it's such an alien and wonderful world, like in my little brain back then. So I started drawing manga in my very early age, but later I'm more interested about like costume design and environment. So later I decided to join when I was applying my uni because I did my bachelor in China as well. So it's one of our like the best of the 8 art institute. So it's national fund. So we've been trained for a year, very restrictive fine art. It's like regardless which subject you are applying, you could be a fashion designer, an interior designer, or even a painter. But all of the first year, regardless which subject you are studying, it's only art foundation. That's everybody was practicing with sketching, drawing, still life, and the color theory. So it's very challenging and boring because the course module is such repetitive pattern. But I'm actually very thankful for the base training because even nowadays they give me like a good practical eye to judge the space, the volume, the material, the color, so which I relies on heavily during my everyday life. So I think like at work, I think those art foundation it's such a good training base. It's not fun. It's just like if you're learning any music instrument, you have to start with the basics. But once you get them, it will carry you way further. So that's one good benefit I got after like those years hard work. But back to the subject about my bachelor degree, I didn't because I applied. I want to learn fashion because I want to be a tailor in the very beginning. Just because of all of those beautiful costume I saw in games and board games and manga.
So the games inspire you to make costumes.
Yeah, exactly. So that was like it's a very girly like ideal version. But in the end, I didn't get it just because that course was like heavily like filled with everybody wants to go there. So I do have an option too. So back then, after my final art exam, that I think I was 16. Yeah. I was 18 to apply my bachelor degree. So what happened over there is like I have two options. Either I spend one more year to apply and pass that art exam again, and hopefully I could get the subject I'm willing to, or I could join the photography and filmmaking. And it happens my dad is like an amateur photographer, and he actually is the first one who taught me how to use a film camera. It was, I think it's 92 Minolta. It's a Japanese brand. And yeah, I kind of know how to use camera since I was a kid, just because my dad has some personal interest about it. Yeah. So I was like, yeah, if it's photography, it's fine. And also I love drama, I love movie. So back then my 4-year training was such a mix with still life photography, digital and film, as well as like editing and filmmaking, because it's bachelor, they give you a lot of options. So back then I do have two mainstream, main two directions to go for. Either I could choose be a cinematographer or I could be a photographer. So back then I was like, cinematography is like because of the limitation of the facility, also the resource was quite limited back to that year because internet wasn't that powerful back then. So I just decided to go with digital photography. So slowly, because of my love about costume, so I slowly getting closer and closer to become a fashion photographer. So that was my status before I
goal.
moved to UK. Yeah. So and in the final year, I do have few job offers, thankfully, but that's mostly for wedding photos. Back then, what people gonna do with the camera? So I'm like, no, I don't want to have that repetitive shooting people and about the wedding. I'm happy for them, but that's not what I want to do. Yeah. So I'm like, okay, maybe it's time to just walk a little bit more. So, well, as an art student in China, I'm never good at English, but I do get an opportunity to read or experience lots of English material through games. So back then, there's one of the biggest online games is World of Warcraft. Everybody is play it, and that game literally trained me with my speaking a lot because. When I decided to apply a uni, as a master degree in the UK, here are two reasons. First is I don't think I could learn French or any other language than English within a year. So even an art student, we never really good at academic stuff because we spend a lot of time about drawing, sketching, but I do spend I graduate in 2006, I believe. So I spent a year to prepare my IELTS just to make sure I have a little bit better English skill before I come to UK and study. Because in theory, you do need to pass the IELTS exam to reach a certain school, unless you wouldn't get a student visa. So which is a good thing because people don't want you come here without a language ability for communication.
Right.
So so that was what happened. And during my 1 year master study in the UK, it's way more intense than expected because in the 4 years uni, it's very relaxing. We do have a lot of module. It is stressful if you really want to do something, but it's totally up to you. But because I came to UK and also due to the currency difference, so the price, everything here is way more expensive than what I'm getting used to at home. Just
London's
because,
crazy expensive.
RMB and the pound sterling. So back then, I think the exchange rate was 1/30 or something. So it's way more crazy than nowadays. So what happened back then is okay, I'm not gonna waste my time here, or I couldn't waste the money. So I was trying my best.
So it made you focus.
To get the effort. But seeing friends, but it's really, really stressful just because the subject I choose is not business, it's not engineering. So in my campus, I actually do not have any Chinese speaking or even Asia classmates, which I am thankful for now because when you are study abroad, especially when you're a newcomer, you tend to stay people from your own group. But because of that environment forced me talk, speak, write, communicate in English, I think after that year, I feel way more confident about everything, especially if you're an artist. I think you probably know this better than me because communication is everything. You can't just go there because we're not business people. We can't really just get a deal and get the things done. It's all about about
ideas.
Thoughts, ideas. It's all about preparing, communication, and executing. So I think the school could train you for the skill of executing. However, communication is another part. Because because I've saw so many good artists with amazing skills, but just because everybody has a different pattern of communication, their work or even the style of their teamwork project, because don't forget, a video game is a teamwork project. You have to do it with other people.
Yeah, no, that's an important point to point out because I've worked with young people and sometimes when it comes to art, especially people I've had people ask me the question can I work by myself? And I always tell people I've not seen anywhere where you could just go off in a corner, work by yourself and not communicate with other people. So it's an important point that you bring up. It's good. Obviously you need to be able to do the art, the drawing, whatever it might be, but it's also important to be able to communicate with people, to convey your ideas, to take feedback, criticism, that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it's also especially, I think if it's fine art, certainly you can just work solo. That's no problem at all.
Yeah,
but to be fair, that's a very niche market and that's not my field. So I don't think I'm the best person to comment about it. But for designer, at least anything industrial, it's it's a matter of execution. I think you do need to at least communicate with other people to make things happen.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And no, that's definitely important to mention. And with it's interesting to hear your because one of the things I was curious to ask is like how you found lighting, like the lighting artist role in games, because like I said, it's not one that immediately sort of jumps out for that people will know, but it sounds as if you're essentially your family, your parents, sort of through photography, brought you into even the concept of lighting. But from that point where you had an interest in photography, obviously with photography comes lighting. How did you find the actual role of lighting artist in video games?
I will never tired to talk about this story. Actually, this is a question or like a topic I have been talked about in every interview I got it. Okay. So it's actually I am lucky. And so let's go back to the period when I was still in London and I was about to graduate. So back then, again, I have two choices. I could continue work as a contractor for like theaters, shows, fashion shows. But because, again, I am an immigrant, so I could not work here freelancing without a firm contract. So back then, that's the first primary request if I want to work abroad. So on the other hand is, back then, there's a video game called Mirror's Edge, and I played it.
Yeah. I love that.
So, Mirror's Edge, it's beautiful, and it brings me like a amazing like personal communication with like professional link, because I play the game and in the very end of the credit, I found a job title named Lighting Artist. That is actually the first time I saw, if you know lighting, you can work for video game. Because back then I do love video game, but I thought I have to be either a programmer or I don't know. Animator, which I'm not trained for either. So I don't think there's a way. I was like, I'll be a fan. I'll just enjoy play the games. I'll probably get a few posters and that's it. So back then I was like, okay, I get it. So so when I read that title, I'm like, oh wait, I know how to light. I just need to learn how to light in video games. So I'm like, maybe that could be a way. But when when I share this opinion with my friends, everybody's like, you sure? So that's like the first, always like, oh, is that mean you have to learn lots of software? I'm just like, okay, because back then, I feel so shocking when I open Maya and look at that UI, because I'm like, oh my God, there's so much button. What should I do?
It's a lot to take
and the
in.
Worst part is like, you have to click something. And once you click something, the entire UI changes. So I'm like, oh my God, that's a lot to learn. And later I've been told, okay, calm down. You don't have to know everything because that software is designed to do everything.
Everything,
but you're not. That's a good news. That's a good news.
What you need to know.
Yeah, indeed. So I've been like, back then I was still work as a freelance photographer. Thankfully, I went to a small college. They're not famous at all. It's not like an art studio or something. It's just like a training college, but they offer online access. I guess it's like our subscription these days. So you could get access with a website like 3D Basque, normal workshop. So after that, I started learning Maya back then, and then I had some really amazing online free tutorial provided by YouTubers. So I think, meanwhile, the school made me learn Maya, and then I decided we do have very good mentors. It's like, okay, if you want to choose direction, just like what I did for my uni. So I decided to go rendering in the beginning just because I saw there is a camera section in Maya. Back then, it was mental ray. I was like, wait, I know every words in that UI. I think I'm gonna go with this one because I literally understand how it works without like spend another 2 years or to do a bachelor or something. So I tried it, and later I think back then Unreal was called UDK. So I found UDK like tutorials online. I believe is from 3D Basque. I'm still be very thankful nowadays because that is considered that's my game foundation. So learned everything free there and went to school, learned how to push the button in the Maya. But I think the best thing happened is like I literally write to the lighting artist who was making Mirror's Edge. And nowadays, he's still been my mentor. So it's very kind. He get back to me.
Oh, so you wrote to the person? I
literally write to the artist, and that sounds a bit crazy, but I said like, hi, I know this is crazy. I want to be you.
That's good initiative.
can you tell me how to be you? So that's the story, literally. And in the end, like, he's really nice. He sent me a couple of links, and he even taught me the basic skill how to do color grading in Unreal back then. So later, when I finished my course in the UK, of course, I have to move back to China because of visa issue. But I start my first apprentice is in a studio. It's an outsourced studio in China, but back then they were working for some big titles with some Korean publisher. And I do believe they also work with like one version of Gears, even it's just for like a texture and the modeling supporting, because either way it's an outsourced studio. So I went there after 9 months. I got the opportunity to apply at Ubisoft Shanghai. So I did the lighting test in Maya.
Before you mention like Ubisoft, I just want to make sure to pause on the fact that you played the game and you looked at the credits and you found the job role. And not only did you find a job role that your interest matched up with, but you actually contacted the person in that and you got a response. So I think that's an important thing to actually mention. I'm glad you brought that up, because I know for sometimes when people feel, I guess there's a bit of anxiety or fear of reaching out to people. But I think what you found and what you demonstrated is that a lot of the times is that people are quite helpful in different industries and in games, where especially for roles like lighting, like maybe not as well thought of, where I can imagine that person would have thought, oh, that's really cool. Someone's got in contact to ask about my role and wants to do what I do. And wants
I should ask my mentor how he's feeling about these days. But
I can
really
imagine, because so I think it's a good thing to mention. So if someone's watching this and they're like, first of all, read all the credits from the finish the game, read the credits, and then actually like try reaching out to people, because you might find, like, you might be surprised that people are very willing to like respond and share their information.
Yeah, because about like people, I think in general, people in our industry, they are very supportive and helpful. I do have another beautiful story to share, because back then, because I'm new in 3D, so I'm eager to like find magazines or like anything I could learn, because back then, again, there's not much YouTuber doing amazing tutorial like nowadays. So the one of my favorite magazine was 3D Artist, but because back then I'm still like, I'm a student, also I am paying for my tuition for the CG school, so I don't really have much money to like afford the subscription for the magazine. So I was looking for like whoever sells the secondhand on Gumtree. Can you believe it? Back then you can just buy stuff on Gumtree. So I wrote to somebody. I know. I know. It's aged. It's aged. So I saw like an architect studio. They were saying like, okay, we have few 3D artist book and the secondhand, like this is the price. So I said, oh, what's £10 for 3 edition, like 4 or 5 edition? So I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna buy it. So I write to them, say, hey, I'm a student and I really like it. I hope you still have them back in stock. And guess what? That architect, he wrote to me by email, says like, hey Maria, I am gonna send you, because we are moving studio, they are moving, so like we have plenty of the magazine, and those few, it's just like we post and see if anybody wants it. And 2 weeks later, they sent me 2 like medium-sized moving books, and there are 16 architecture, 3D artist, anything related to render, and they send this to me, and including a catalog about some brutalism architect. Jeez, that magazine looks really expensive. It's so fine printed. So I'm like, oh wow, this is Christmas. So yeah, this is a story I'd like to share. So people are really nice.
I feel like the lesson here is like reach out to people and like ask.
Exactly.
That's a good lesson. Just ask, because the worst they could have said is no, we can't do that. So and the best they sent you all the stuff. So that's really cool.
It's not even only for material. Even nowadays, I do get, because apart from my full-time job at Smash Damage, also my studio is very nice to allow me teaching. So I keep sharing this story to my students as well. I'm teaching at the Vertex School, so it's running by a very well-known ZBrush digital artist, Ryan Kingsley. So I've been working with Ryan for 2 years, and whenever my students, because I do run like only twice per year for like a 6-week workshop. And what happened over there is like I always told my students, if you see your favorite artist, reach out them and just drop them a message on ArtStation, especially for games. Now the main platform, I think ArtStation is the one. And for whoever is listening, really want to get into game industry, make sure you get your portfolio, and ArtStation is a good place to go because the basic start is free. So I think that's also a good place if you want to find some online display or platform for your portfolio.
Okay. No, it's good advice. And so I want to, there's different aspects I want to dig into a bit more. But before we even go any further, just for those that don't know, can you explain what a lighting artist does in the game? So what part of the game are you working on, and what stage are you working on as well?
Yeah, so a good news about this job is you got the opportunity to work at one of the most beautiful games across all the platforms. But a bad news will be, so far, unfortunately, mobile games doesn't need us in most of the case. And also, like any like online games, they do have ways more, so you have fewer tools to play and for your lighting. So for the job itself, it's like, imagine you have a video game level and anything glows, it's our job. And anything shining is our job as well. So that's like we make two major parts in this job. One is for interior level. So that's like you got to do a little bit of lighting design. Say there's a corridor. If it's a sci-fi corridor, then how to light them like correctly. And it's not only making beautiful, it also means like if there is an important entrance, there is an escape, there is an escalator, or there is something important item for the mission. We design the lighting and makes the environment vivid, but on top of that, also serve the purpose of guiding the player. So you're a guide, a makeup artist to make the game beautiful, and also you could be somehow god or goddess because we're also in charge of the exterior weathers. So if it's raining, cloudy, day and night circle, that's your job too. So that's a fun part. But in general, I think most of the video games now, you're using a game editor instead of 3D software like Maya or Max, because that's more for like rendering or like modeling. But if you do lighting, I think nowadays it's almost 100% chance you're going to work with the game editor. So that's actually the tool. Sometimes could be in-house developed, like the tool, the editor in Far Cry. They actually based on CryEngine, but they have their very own version. So at Splash, I work with Unreal Engine nowadays, and still that's my favorite tool, just because open source, the like latest free tutorial. So I feel it's easy to learn. And also, even you are already in the industry, even like you've been years, but learning will always be the key thing, just because of how quickly the tech evolved. So, because I would say usually every 3 months, I will spend quite amount of time. I couldn't really name it because I constantly look up for like tutorials, latest tech. It depends on what you're using, but learning will constantly be a lifelong topic if you want to involve in this industry.
No, that makes sense, because like you said, it is always changing. I mean, Unreal Engine 5, is that? Yeah, Unreal Engine 5 just come out. You've got Unity Engine, or if you've got like a proprietary engine for a specific developer, there's always things to learn. And so in terms of like the role itself, that's interesting to know, because it's about the lighting and, like you say, guiding the player. So you'd think sometimes you can look at a game and say, you know, the game, the narrative or the text or the UI is telling you what to do, but actually it's also, it is that, but then it's also the lighting. So if you go into into an open space, it's almost like, where do you want the player to go? So like you say, it's about, having something shine in the distance. So most players are going to go, okay, let me go in that direction. And that's the direction that they want you to go in.
Yeah. And then they find a broken bridge or something.
That kind of thing. So it's really interesting to hear it, like all the different elements and how it all works together to guide the player experience. So that's cool. And then before we get back to the live stream, you mentioned sort of learning and constantly learning. So are you back on like YouTube? Are you always on YouTube, like looking up tutorials? Like how do you, like where do you go to keep up your skills?
Well, nowadays I do have like quite a amount of like Unreal tutorials, but for Unreal, I think that's like the official one is also good. And I think the one I follow often is done by a tech and VFX artist called Whale. So it's William Voucher. And there are plenty of other YouTubers because I actually know a few really good lighting artists like Tilman Mado. So he is currently lighting director at EA Finland, I believe. But guys, if you're into Unreal Engine, search Unreal Lighting Academy. That's the tutorial I always recommend. I can't be recommend it more just because how fair and the speed, and it's very well editing and it's completely free. So I do write few blog on my ArtStation as well in terms of how I make stuff. And we are doing this interview, I also did quite a few online interview to guide people who are looking for the source. So I'd say it's really depends on you, because even in our role, we have two different definition about lighting artists, because I see myself as a mix about art and tech, but some lighting artists, they literally has a job title called tech lighting artist. So if you're not that heavy into art, I don't think that'll be a problem, because I do know quite a few amazing lighter. They are heavily on render technique, and they are very interesting about developing softwares with the rendering engineer. So I think that could be another way. They have really solid material knowledge and they know how to do the debugging. So it's not like all the lighters making beautiful look stuff. But there are other lighters, if you're working super physical based rendering, you do need a really well understanding about how material works, what happened at each step of the pipeline. And also to communicate well with your art director is also very important, because it's production, and our job here is not only make a beautiful image or guide the player, it's also about learning what is this project for, and learning with your art director, understand what is the style he is looking after, because art director has the full control of the consistency of the project. We only make good games when every department dancing together.
Yeah, no, well said. So in terms of making video games, so we all know making video games is very hard. It's a very hard thing to bring together. So specifically with lighting, I'm always concerned with, or not concerned, but always interested in the perception versus the reality. So is there something in your role that seems like it might be easy to do, but is actually very difficult?
Well, I'd say yes, and it happens very often, because lighting is such a thing, very abstract. It is an art form, but it only exists rely on the either environment or character. So basically, for us to get an amazing work, it means we always have to work based on somebody else's work, such as environment, texture, and material. So we take myself as an example. I don't do modeling, but it's important to know how to modeling and how to digestify different type of textures, material. For example, if I get a request to create a sunny weather but looks beautiful, if it's a half inside out environment, such like a cave, that's easy because what you see is limited. But in most of the case, especially in games like Gears or Far Cry, they are Gears is a FPS. You need the level to be very bright, so all the player wouldn't see anybody. They might get shot, and the game wouldn't sell well. So for Far Cry, it's even more intense because Far Cry is an open world game. You are supposed to running everywhere. So making a nice weather is easy, but make a nice weather look nice everywhere is not easy. So that's a typical example. So there are lots of factors I have to consider, but thankfully, like I said, it's just because I'm not gonna go super abstract because that's about all the tech, all the designs, but what I will always consider before I jump into a huge and open world level, just to use a real life concept, because I feel that's very helpful. So imagine you're shooting a movie and it's an open ground in a desert or in an open playground or something like that. Certainly to make the scene look nice, you will need the gaffer, the lighting artist for film, to set up a blind shade to cover some certain area. That trick works exactly the same in video games. And the best part, you don't have to worry about electricity So that's great. Yeah, because in real field, because like I said, I was trained for like photography and filmmaking. In the field lighting work, first we have to do the work really fast because the crew is here. And the secondary is like power and weather and even heat is always gonna be the constraint just because they are limited resource. And also you have to be considerate with the talent who is standing right underneath the spotlight. You can't really shuffle them with a super bright light. If it's too bright, they couldn't acting as normal and then the show wouldn't be good. So there are way more practical factors gonna limit it. It's like thousands of bad hands just drove you back from your version. But in video games, I feel like, yeah, there's still challenge, but it's way easier. It has its own challenge, such as the FPS. You have to guarantee whatever you make looks pretty and also meets the FPS standards. 60 or 30 depends on the console. But
so is your lighting, is the work you do on lighting then, is that something you have to be mindful of impacting? So if you go like all out with the lighting, then the FPS will drop.
Yeah, indeed. Especially nowadays, like we're using like the latest video game tech is like real time. That means there's no rendering, no pre-bake. If it's pre-bake, some lights will like basically they not get calculated while rendering each frame. But that's no longer a thing just because the real time lighting linked with like beautiful smoke, sparkles, explosion. So everything has to be rendering real time as much as possible because that's how we brings the immersive experience to the player. So it's always have like each light you drop has an impact about the frame rate. Also the other department, because in a game it's not only light, there's smoke, people are dying, there's complicated animations, maybe like a cars corruption, auto, motorcycle, there's a lot of things. You're a gamer, you could get it. So in general, it's like, say, if I could light a thing beautifully with 12 light, that's okay. But in the production standard, you probably only allowed to afford 5 or 6 light. Can you reach the same effect? So that's the challenge, and that's the practicing coming from. Like if you ever worked in field lighting, you'll be like, oh wow, I got 5 or 6 lights. That's amazing because usually 3 lights is the maximum in the studio. So I'm like, yeah, that's a benefit. It's like sweet and pain, but still the digital tech, like in general, is just constantly evolving. So as a user for those amazing software out to see, it's a very amazing journey. Yeah.
Okay. And so, because we're in like a new generation now, and sort of I mentioned Unreal Engine 5, and we've got like new consoles and everything. And something I hear a lot of is ray tracing. Is that something that impacts on? I imagine that's something that impacts on your role, and what does that do, or what will that do for video games going forward?
Yeah. Well, long story short, if I give a plainer English explanation, is before like. The lighting effect itself, you see things get lighted and bright. And for sure in real life, if you give a light to an object, it also responds with reflection and refraction, right? Yeah. So before in CGI, they have to be calculated with different impact. But ray tracing, why it's called ray tracing in general, is like they literally send a ray from the light source to the surface, and then it's either bounce or get absorbed. Depends on the material. So you could consider this is a way like a more scientifically correct. So hence why we get more photorealistic response, especially on shadow and reflections. Yeah, I hope I explained it.
Yeah. No, and is that done? So that's done in real time versus
that's
like doing it beforehand and saying this is how we think it will look reflected.
Yeah, exactly.
But now you're doing it like it's actually being reflected in game.
Yeah, indeed. Because what happens to me and some artists, they are way more like experienced than myself just because they're in CGI industry for decades. I spoke to some of my like really respected artists in games, and they were saying they're not really getting used to ray tracing because back to those days, like I said, the light, reflection, and everything else they're treated separately. But because I myself have a little bit weird past, I come from the field lighting. So to me, like the latest ray tracing tech or the looming tech is another real-time global illumination tech from Unreal. So I feel that's like that's exactly how the light source should work in real life. So I got no problem about it. So I'm
it makes sense to you.
Yeah, it makes sense to you, like in a very abstract way as well. Because for sure it's a new tech. Everybody needs to know what happened. But it's just like, I kind of know why the carpet will be reflected red just because you throw a strong light on it. Because that's what happened if you have a reflector in real life. So that's come from like the brainless first-hand life experience, if I may say.
Yeah, no, I get that. And it does feel like sort of the gaming technology is in a weird way like catching up to real life, like it's acting more real. And then also what's cool about your background is that you've essentially come from a different industry. So you bring with
that's
like
very true.
set of knowledge. And so recently we spoke about we did a podcast episode on The Mandalorian, and we talked briefly about the production there in terms of how they use Unreal Engine
I watched
to render scenes. So that's like really fascinating. So it's almost like the video game tools are at a place where there's even more crossover with film, and that kind of fits because you're familiar with both.
Yeah. Because it's quite interesting journey, because I am more amazed. Like I would usually I say like I think I joined this industry in a very good timing, because according to what I heard for people working animation, even CGI about 20 years ago, it's totally different. Yeah.
Okay. And so as someone who's come from film, do you like when people have specialist skills and they consume media, so whether it's games or film or whatever it might be, do you always pay like extra attention to the lighting, like when you watch a film or something?
I do. I'm such an awful audience about movie, because the thing is I'm very picky about the topic and even cinematographer, and sometimes I would say I'm too narrow-minded. So guys, don't learn from me, because I do have few very much like a brainless fan, like director, cinematographer. My favorite cinematographer is Dan Watson. He is a Danish cinematographer. If you ever watched John Wick, that's his work.
Oh, okay.
And Crimson Peak, and I can name a lot of them. Shape of Water. So it's like very beautiful movies and storytelling. And I love like mysterious monster ghost stories. So I'm a big fan of Guillermo del Toro.
I was going to say,
Okay. Yeah, so everybody, like whoever saw my work is like, oh, Maria, do you like Gilmore's movie? Yes, let's talk about it. And then they half an hour, I made that person fall asleep because I just can't shut up about these movies. But on top of that, I do love watching a lot of like documentaries, just because they have that industrial standard. Well, National Geographic is a bit cliche, or Discovery, but they're good, really. I mean, like tech-wise, and they're really good. So, and also I feel like it's good for my mental health, to be honest. We're all look at home, look at wildlife. It's good.
Yeah, no, it's
good.
Outside. Yeah. That's a good point. That's a good point. And then, is there, so even though you have had that background in lighting and everything, is there something that has like surprised you working in video games, that something that you didn't expect in your role? Whether it's something you have to do or something you've learned,
Of course, because I think, like I said, lighting, like our work is not only about beauty, it's not only about game design. I would say it's actually a very heavy tech-based job. It's not like we have to develop a super difficult or challenge tech, because look, I'm not a programmer or anything related to that. I never passed a math exam after mid school, so that's it. So but the thing is, you got to know whatever tool we're using, you have to know them well. And every tool has its advantage and disadvantage. And that balance, maybe it's like, practically speaking, you can only find them out while working in exact project. Because, for example, if you are working on a first-person or third-person shooting games, certainly visibility is the most important. Sometimes we got to sacrifice a beauty corner, even like we're both happy. My director is happy about it, but just because it doesn't serve the purpose of the gameplay, or it blocked some tiny corner, the player couldn't see it, then we're not gonna use it. So that's some practical conflict. And another thing is like the opinion between art and designer, because they're both very important department.
Okay.
But sometimes they couldn't really gel very well just because of different intentions. Like we artists, we want to present the best, but designers will consider them with like how to make the game more fun. So it's very difficult. We're gonna explain like a lot of meetings, try to convincing each other, and then in most of the case, the result remains. But yeah, discussion is good. Yeah. So so that's few conflict I do met, and also sometimes because of the tech issue, say power cut or like some if you work with like cross-country studios, because video game could be internationally developed. So sometimes if we do have a short deadline, there's a data delay, that's not happy. But usually the entire studio will just be chill. We do have to do some like the hard work to get the stuff done, but people just joke it's it's another Monday, everything's broken. Yeah, this is fine.
Yes. And that kind of like you said, a conflict between different departments and different disciplines. People. Because one of the reasons why I like doing these interviews and talking to different people is like I've gained an understanding of the different areas of making a game, and how, like you say, like the artist, everything's got to look great, they're fantastic. The designers, but how does it work? How does it work in a game? How does it serve the player? And then making a game is about, in a sense, compromise between those different elements to make something that actually gets finished, that actually goes out. So
Indeed.
Yeah, it's good insight.
Yeah, because also it's like maybe because I am not a native speaking English. Also, sometimes like the language is no longer a barrier for me, thankfully. But I really like how my colleague or like professional friends gives you like critics, but they will try to do them like in an almost over polite way. I think that's one part. I do love English culture. It's like
I was going to say
this is amazing, and then it's gonna be and then but
this is great.
Apparently,
but this bit
maybe that's my favorite part.
Yeah. Have you thought about doing it like this? As someone
yeah, exactly. Yeah, that sounds familiar. Very much.
Very British thing. So, with you being someone who works in video games, you're making video games. I wonder, does that, or has it changed your relationship with playing games? Like, do you find yourselves playing games less or playing different types of games?
Actually, way less. I do still play games. I think in a quite recent, like I finally got a chance to start playing Nier Automata because I bought them ages ago. Yeah, but I just like it because it's a very practical thing. Just because as a writer, I do look at a lot of reference while I'm working. So sometimes even I don't want to spoil myself because I still have to check the latest game trailer, what's the tech. Sometimes I watched everything about the game, like GDC Tech Talks and their concept art. I know everything and I just don't have time to play it. And I have to nerd. It's like prepare to spoil yourself just because you're in the industry. They are fun games. They are like studios you love. But they are your competitor too. So knowing your enemy is very important. Professional-wise. Yeah. So that's like something I couldn't because I never be like upset if the friends or colleagues are like, oh, there's a spoiler alert. It's fine. It's like I'm working in this industry. I got to know what's going on. It's like you are sailing and you got to know the weather. So that's it.
Yeah. And it's good to see what other people are doing because you get, like you say, it's that sort of competition, but then also like an element of inspiration. So, for example, I don't know if you've watched the series Arcane.
Oh, I did. I watched it.
Yeah, because that's something where amazing. That's so amazing. Where you just look at what other people are doing. You're like, I have to learn from this. Like, I'm gonna do something better than what I would have because I saw what other people are doing. So because it's very interesting. It's like because I watched it with my partner, and then he's an amazing tech artist, and there's sometimes he will just pause it and ask me how I feel about it after I explain. Like I see there is a theory behind why they set up the thing like this. It's like how they frame the character, and because he's a tech guy, he's like he saw things like amazing effects. He make like amazing effects himself, but the thing is when I explained, he's telling me like, okay, I never heard
heard like this could be a theory behind. So I was like, that's just like, I don't know how to use Houdini, and that's your thing, and I don't know how to do it, but we are trained for different aspects. So I saw the pattern, and I am supposed to see the pattern so that I can learn from them and make my own work even better. But like I said, spoiler alert, even you love this game so much, you don't have time to play it and still have to like check the tech talks, check the concept art. So that's one thing, is unavoidable. And also a practical thing is because I look at the screen all day. So in my spare time, because I do sewing. It might sound weird because I do sewing. Yeah. So I'm like, I love like making, remember the costume story I did? I still have like, I treat them as a hobby. I literally should have a sewing machine at home because I will try to like spend my eyes away from screen, like in my spare times. Partially health, partially mental health. Yes. And also look at the real world. I love traveling a lot, but the situation for now, hopefully it could get better. But this is something I do, like check your real life if you work for digital. It's very important. Yeah,
that's a good thing to mention. Yeah, I was going to ask that if you were still making costumes or do you do cosplay?
I do. I don't do cosplay, but I collect ball joint dolls. So they actually like the clothes. I made costume with them. Yeah. Okay. So,
All right, and that kind of leads me on to my last question. I did mention, you mentioned manga. You brought it up, so let's talk about that. Do you have any like favorite manga or anime titles? Any recommendations?
Oh my god, I have a lot. I think the first one pops in my mind because it's quite recent. Will be Violet Evergarden.
Okay.
Cool. Because
I'm going to take
check
notes.
on Netflix, Violet Evergarden. Yeah. Yep. So that's a Japanese one, and it's made by the famous Kyoto anime. That was before. It's made by Kyoto family. And then I think I do have like Shingai. I think Makido Shingai, the one who made Your Name. So that's like it's famous. Japanese.
No, I love
anime.
that. That's absolutely a beautiful story.
Because he has a really specific style about lighting. Yes. It doesn't apply to every project, but I just love like the story as well. Also, like it's a lot of like story-wise about like the young school life. That's very close to the culture I was born and grew up. So that's something I do love to watch. And the other one I think is Cowboy Bebop. So that's one of them. Classic. But the animation is really good.
Yes, so, the animation, not the live action.
The animation, it's really good. I haven't watched the live action yet.
Me neither.
But I didn't.
I'm not in any
rush
to watch it either.
I see. Yeah, indeed.
Right, cool. That's really good recommendations. Maria, thank you for taking the time to speak with me and giving us some insight into the area of lighting for video games.
Yeah, thank you for having me. It's really great to speak to you as well. Yeah, take care, everyone.
Cool. No, I appreciate it. And for everyone watching, if you are, definitely check the comments or check the description because we'll drop some links that Maria mentioned in there. You can also join our Discord if you have any particular questions, and hopefully we can help point you in the right direction. Make sure you follow us here on YouTube for other videos in our interview series with video game professionals. Follow us on Twitch so you can catch our live GamePad online events, and also check out our podcast Story X Story, where Tazzy and myself talk about stories across pop culture, including video games, but also anime, manga, books, TV, anything that interests us. So you can check that out in the description below as well. And this has been our interview. We'll be doing more in this series, so check out the other videos, and then we'll see you again next time. So take care, everyone. Hey there, I'm Nigel from mayamada. Thanks for watching our video. Don't forget to subscribe and check out the other great videos we have on the channel. You can also join the GamePad Discord and check out the next event at gamepad.events. We'll see you soon.